Joaquim Boumtje-Boumtje just had one of the most dominant FIBA Youth World Cup performances that we've ever seen, as he walked away with MVP honors, averaging 19.6 points, 10.9 rebounds, 2.1 blocks, 2 assists, and 1.7 steals. He was the driving factor in Team USA maintaining their unbeaten streak at this event and walking away with their 8th straight gold medal. Now, while most players in this tournament still have another year or two of high school that they have to complete before they jump to college or the pro level, Boumtje-Boumtje reclassified and is actually going to Duke this year. So even though he's going to Duke and is going to be a freshman, we're going to get to see him at the college level a lot earlier than the rest of the guys that he was playing with. But he is still too young to declare for the draft, so we're going to get at least 2 years of him in college, which could be astronomically impressive and important for his long-term development. Boumtje-Boumtje showcased his IQ, his physicality, his athleticism, his two-way versatility from start to finish throughout this tournament. Let's take a look at why he was so dominant, how he impacted winning. Welcome to film school. Let's dive in. So the first place I want to start with Boumtje-Boumtje is where I thought he had the most success, and that was weirdly enough as a play finisher, and specifically with his outside shooting. At first glance, I thought Boumtje-Boumtje was just going to be one of these U.S. bigs that we've seen in the recent years where they just kind of exclusively thrive on overpowering their opponents, and that wasn't the case at all. He showcased great scoring touch and a legitimate ability to space the floor as he shot 53% from three. Now, in the tournament setting, it's only like 7 games, so your first instinct might be like, all right, well, what, he took 4 of them? He took 4.5 attempts per game. So that is really encouraging to me that we're getting that type of volume, and the shot attempts that he was consistently executing here feel very, 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 very replicable going forward. So here we got like just a little stagger screen action for Beckham Black. Boumtje is immediately going to flare out and slip his, hoping that Dampier's dive here is going to create some chaos, clog up the paint a little bit. It does. Enough room. Boumtje does a great job of just hopping right into it. High release, soft touch, absolute money. Spotting up on the weak side, decent late contest, doesn't matter. I love the shot readiness for Boumtje. Just as we go through a lot of these clips, just look at how even when he's not getting the ball, like Dampier's making this kick to the corner, but watch how Boumtje just always has his hands ready. He's ready if that pass, if that ball is getting skipped out to him, he's going to be ready for it. As the ball swings to, I believe that's Jordan Page in the corner, Boumtje slides over a little bit, shot ready, catch, swings through, steps right into it. Really consistent mechanics, unfazed by the soft contest here, and just the decisiveness that Boumtje constantly showed with his shot selection is really, really fun. Here, a little pick and pop, slip screen action, catch, rises straight up, zero hesitation yet again. A lot of bigs, their first instinct isn't to look at the rim in these types of situations. Most bigs at Boumtje's age here are going to look to swing it, go into a DHO, something else, maybe attack downhill, but his eyes on the catch are already on the rim. He's already looking up there. He sees that his defender is getting a late closeout here. And that level of confidence, that level of decisiveness from him all tournament as a shooter is very exciting and really suggests to me that the shooting with him is very real. 53% real? Probably not. But I think it's going to be a legitimate weapon. And even here, just a little bit of a broken play. Looking for that entry pass, getting harassed from behind. Nothing really developing. Just says, screw it. Let's pull up from NBA range. Nothing else is working here. We're early in the game. If I miss, so what? Who cares? Doesn't matter. Rises up, knocks it down. So the fact that Boumtje was spacing the floor this consistently, I think is really exciting, because when we think about him translating to the NBA, it's obviously going to be a viable skill for him going forward. But even just like next year at Duke, it's going to make their ability to play 2 big lineups with him and Pat Ngongba way more feasible than we may have initially expected. There's going to, between those two guys, there's going to be so much passing, so much feel. And the fact that Boumtje can potentially kind of scale down to play the four alongside Pat, or be a key focal point in like a 5-out system either this year or next year, is really fun and just provides a lot of lineup versatility that most bigs his age simply do not possess. Now, typically when we see bigs at this age space the floor as much as Boumtje-Boumtje was, that tends to lead to them not actually doing the big man stuff and being physical around the rim. That wasn't the case at all with Boumtje-Boumtje, as he took just over 7 2-point attempts per game and shot 64% on them. So that ability of his to be an inside outside scorer is so much fun. We're seeing him finish with power on around the rim. We saw him finish with finesse from outside, and that ability to be a versatile play finisher where he's initially going to set the screen here for Caden Daughtry, but he feels that his defender is way overpressing. He's way overplaying him, being way too aggressive. So he just slams on the brakes. He knows that no one's protecting the rim now. So he just slams on the brakes, lets his defender's momentum take him past, gets a really good seal, fights through the contact, little jersey pull, doesn't matter, great hands through contact, unfazed by the weak side defender rotating over, goes up with force, with power, decisively, and slams it home, plus the foul. And we also got a lot more downhill creation from him as the tournament went on. For most of the tournament, he was acting more as like a play finisher, especially with his outside jumper. There wasn't a whole lot of wiggle with his creation. The handle is pretty straight line stuff, A to B. But at his position for who he is right now, it doesn't need to be anything more dynamic. If we're going to start throwing out some Cam Boozer comps, then it obviously is going to have to grow a little bit. But for now, today, for this tournament, it was more than effective because he's really strong and really decisive with the ball. And once he decides he's getting to a spot, good luck. Good luck keeping him from getting there. As we can see here, just lowers his shoulder, does a great job of not extending with that right arm. He's just creating space here just with his shoulder. There's no push off there. There's no shenanigans. And he just goes straight through the defender. And now that he's created all of that space through purely his shoulder, he's then able to explode into that cushion and dare the defender to try and defend him again. He can't, extends with that left hand, finishes off the glass. Here, attacking from the top of the arc again, little hesitation move, and just pure power. May have gotten away with the travel there, but hey, no whistle, we play on. For someone his size to throw out a little hesitation like that, that's fun. It's not the most aggressive hesitation. It needs some work, it needs some development, but I love that he had the confidence to throw it out here. A little hesitation, raises his eyes, gets the defender up in his stance a little bit, attacks that high foot. He's trying to get a take foul here. He's trying to commit the foul. We see him signal to the ref. Boumtje-Boumtje is like, don't care. I'm going to the rim. Screw your foul. Forget your foul. We're only up 10. Not good enough. Let's get to the rim. Fights through that contact. Goes straight at the weak side rotation defender. Goes through him. Completely unfazed. Finishes through the contact. It's pretty special stuff. And this isn't just someone who's bigger and more physical and purely dominating through force. Obviously, he is doing a lot of that, but there's legitimate skill here. Typically, with those guys who, the bigs at this age, who purely rely on force and power and size and athleticism, they rarely leave the paint. But the fact that we're seeing Boumtje-Boumtje already operate from the perimeter and create these drives is pretty special, incredibly encouraging. And the fact that he's blending a little hesitation, showing off his straight line speed, again, secures the ball, fights through the contact, has the straight line speed to beat his defender to the spot, and then the explosiveness to get through the contact and finish over the rotating help defender It's such a fun blend of size, athleticism, skill, power, finesse at his position, at his age. The two big lineup at Duke next year could be a lot of fun because of Boumtje's ability to space the floor, but it's also going to open up a lot of driving opportunities for him like this. Instead of just operating in isolation and getting downhill in Duke's system, think about how the ball a pick and pop situation or how he can spot up on the second side and the ball will swing to him. And now, since he is a legitimate shooter, defender, he's going to draw those aggressive closeouts. Now he can attack those closeouts, get downhill, and finish through rotating weak side defenders that effortlessly. This tournament really highlighted Boumtje's scoring versatility with the finesse and play finishing versatility from outside, from inside, the scoring touch around the rim, the power around the rim. From a scoring perspective, there wasn't a single team in this tournament who had any answer for him. Now, finally, with Boumtje's offense, the last thing I want to touch on real quick is the passing, because he only averaged 2 assists for a big in this kind of tournament. That's okay, but for someone with his level of skill and feel, it surprised me that it was that low. But then you think about the context, and it's like, all right, well, he's playing with Beckham Black. He's playing with Caden Daughtry. Like, they're really good point guards on this team, so he wasn't really asked to do anything like that. But I am fascinated if we see a massive uptick at Duke this year with his playmaking, with his passing vision, because I think there's a lot left in the tank that he didn't really get to show in this tournament. So, like, on this one, does a great job just tipping the ball to himself on the defensive rebound. And I love how there's zero hesitation. He already knows that Jordan Page is leaking out in transition here. And the second that he secures this tip to himself, it's tip, catch, out. And like as he's catching it, he's already loading up that outlet pass and then delivering it right on the money to hit Page in stride for that transition layup. So he's got eyes on the ball, tips it to himself, and right about here, he's recognizing. So he's in the process of securing the ball, and he recognizes the Page is leaking out. So in the matter of about half a second, he's recognizing where his teammate is. Obviously, he knew Page was on that weak side, so there's that instinct of, hey, he's probably leaking out. Let's identify him. But in the half second that he's securing, or the second between him tipping it to himself and catching it, he's securing the ball, securing the rebound, identifying where his teammate's leaking out to, and then instantaneously delivering an outlet pass right on the money. Here, look, this one feels really replicable, especially at like the college level. If he turns into a big time post scorer and those doubles get sent, we saw Cam Boozer thrive in situations like this all year, where every single double that opponents sent to Cam Boozer at Duke this last year, he would capitalize and pick them apart with plays exactly like this. I feel like we're going to see this type of assist from Boumtje relentlessly in Duke's system over the next 2 years. But as he catches this in the early offense, right here, now he knows that he has 2 defenders on him, and he's looking at Beckham Black here, Jordan Page in the corner, and he's just waiting for what is this guy going to do. He does a really good job of being patient. He sees the weak side defender sink down a little bit, and he's just waiting for Page to cut baseline here. Really good patience, especially now once he sees that initial secondary defender is retreating back to Black. There isn't a whole lot of communication here. Weak side defender has not once turned to look to see where Page is. Boumtje recognizes that the weak side defender has no clue where Page is. Page is actively cutting. We can see Boumtje securing the ball, preparing the pass, delivers it right on the money, sets up the easy dunk. So there wasn't a ton of playmaking stuff from Boumtje throughout this tournament, but I think there's a lot of upside. The feel, the IQ, the passing accuracy, and a lot of the reads that he was making suggests that he is barely scratching the surface of it yet, and I think we're going to see a lot more of it at Duke. Now, finally, I want to wrap up with Boumtje's defense, because it was pretty spectacular. For a guy his size to move the way that he does in space, sliding his feet, jumping passing lanes, blocking shots at the rim, It was extraordinary to watch. It really, really was. He showcased such a high level of athleticism and physicality, fundamentals, IQ, awareness, really whatever you wanted to see, he showed you. And his closing speed at his size, his footwork at his size is pretty spectacular. Now, throughout the tournament, there were a handful of lapses where his fundamentals got a little lazy, got a little sloppy, where he would get a little upright, a little narrow in his base. But typically when that happened, they were already up by 20, 30, sometimes 40 points. So in those situations, I'm a little more lenient, and the good far outweighed the bad. So here, Lukic on Serbia was an awesome shooter all tournament. So the fact that he's guarding him right off the bat tells you a lot. Now, most times, guys, Boumtje-Boumtje's size, once they jump at a shot fake like that, they're kind of toast. But look at how quickly Boumtje recovers. Just the second that his feet touch back down. Now, he doesn't get like super high off the floor, but the fact that he is recovering this quickly, where it's jump. Now, Lukic probably should have driven baseline here, but whatever, he doesn't. But the second that Boumtje's toes touch the ground, look at how he's playing on his toes, and immediately explodes into cutting off this drive. That is suffocating. For a center to be doing this on the perimeter is kind of unheard of. Lukic let him off again. Lukic let him off a little bit with his decision to attack middle instead of baseline, but the reaction speed, the foot speed, and then the fact that he's also sitting down in his stance, doing a good job of maintaining his balance throughout this, playing super physical without fouling, and staying attached to Lukic and forcing that kick out with 5 seconds left on the clock. Perimeter defense from a center, it doesn't get much better than this. On this one, we see him switch in the pick and roll, open his hips up, initially crosses just to keep up that foot speed, but does a good job of sitting relatively low, and he knows that he doesn't have to totally cut off the drive because he has a massive size advantage here. So all he has to do is stay attached. The point guard has the audacity to throw up a little inside scoop shot. Boumtje swats it away, but I just love that he's not panicking here. Once the point guard tries to attack his high foot, a lot of players at this age start to panic because they're like, oh no, I need to cut off this drive. But when there's this big of a size advantage, the really smart ones know that they have that advantage and know that they don't necessarily have to cut off every single drive. They just have to stay attached. Now, Boumtje kind of does both on this one, does a great job of playing with physicality, making sure that the point guard here has zero chance of getting all the way to the restricted area, stays attached, swats the shot away. Here we see him in a little drop coverage, and similar situation, just staying attached. I don't love how upright he is. This is something I just mentioned. Big lead, so I get it, but a lot of game left. Little upright here, just kind of floats, and this one is more just impressive from a hand-eye coordination and explosiveness around the rim, where how quickly he gets off the ground. Now, he isn't like a skyscraper or a skywalker in terms of how high he can jump, but the suddenness and how quickly he gets off the ground and is able to locate and turn shots away like this one is really fun. Would like to see this defensive intensity be a little better, but this was about the time where they really started pulling away in this game. On this one, we see a little defense to offense action going on. Good length, recognizing where his defender's cutting. At first, it looks like he's going to be out of position here, but right about here, as he tries to close out, potentially jump this passing lane, he just gives a little peek over his shoulder to recognize where or identify where his man is, a little peek. Once he recognizes that the pass isn't going here, he just instinctually knows that his man is going to be cutting behind him. If he flares back towards midcourt, then whatever, he can deal with that then. But his instincts tell him that his man is now cutting behind him since he had this sloppy closeout trying to gamble on the passing lane. So he just immediately recovers back there, reads it perfectly, and then shows off the handle, straight line speed, pushing in transition. Now they have a numbers advantage, and just heady play to set up Beckham Black with the live dribble dump off. And I love that he gets rid of it early here, giving him plenty of time and space to avoid the charge attempt, and also giving Beckham Black plenty of room to get the layup or the dunk off here. Composed, effortless, turning defense into offense, as he does here. I love the closing speed here. So initially he's running off this screen. Ball handler really can't see him, I don't think, through this traffic. And even if he does, I don't think he's expecting Boumtje-Boumtje to be able to close and cover this much ground this quickly. And for a big man to be running off of screens and closing and jumping passing lanes that quickly, and then having the confidence and comfort to push in transition on his own, finish with the big dunk. It's really, really fun. So this was the kind of defense that Boumtje-Boumtje was showcasing all tournament, where he was a really good help rim protector. He slid his feet and played with physicality and solid fundamentals and space on the perimeter, and then frequently turned really good defense into even better offense. Having that combination of IQ, fundamentals, and defensive playmaking at his position, it's what every coach dreams of with their big men. All right, so where does that leave us with Joaquim Boumtje-Boumtje? Unlike most players in this tournament who are going back to high school, Boumtje-Boumtje reclassified and is actually going to Duke this season. He's going to be on the roster for this season. He isn't draft eligible for the 2027 draft. He will be in the 2028 draft. So this is another example of the Jaden Quaintance type of prospect, where we're going to see him in the college setting. Maybe it's Duke for both years. Who knows with how the transfer portal works now. But hopefully for, given Duke's track record of developing guys, for his sake, I hope it's at Duke. But we're going to be seeing him in college for the next 2 years. And I think he's going to be day one ready to contribute, to make an impact, like we saw from Jaden Quaintance. Very different players, but get ready for the Cam Boozer comps to start flying, because there are a lot of similarities. I don't think he has as creative and as tight of a handle as Boozer had. Boumtje-Boumtje's on-ball creation is way more straight line A to B type of stuff, and I am really excited to see the passing continuing to get unlocked and developed. I'd love to see the handle take another step, and I'm really excited to see what the shot and scoring versatility continue to look like on a much bigger sample against much better and tougher competition. Throughout this tournament, Boumtje-Boumtje was a force. He was dominant. He was undeniable. No one had an answer for him, as he was too fast for most bigs. He was too strong for everyone else, and he was more skilled than almost everyone else on the floor. His ability to protect the rim, jump passing lanes, defend in space, knock down threes off the catch, off the bounce, get to the rim out of isolation, out of the roll, find open teammates. There wasn't a single thing on the court that Boumtje-Boumtje showed that he couldn't do. There were varying levels of success to each aspect, but everything he did out there, he did at an extremely high level, and already he is looking like he could be one of the biggest impact freshmen in college basketball next year, and he's not even going to be draft eligible.